He just simply is my captain. This is today's Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is indeed the Arsenal News Show. Joining every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you so much as always for joining me and making this a part of your morning routine. Indeed, it is greatly appreciated. Hope you've had a fantastic week. You've made it to Friday, which means it's the weekend. And halfway is nigh in this international break. So those of you that do struggle with these, don't worry. You basically just got one more week to go. And then it's the North London derby. But for those that, of course, can still get by and enjoy some of the fruits that the international break tree has to bear, last night certainly was one of those experiences for Arsenal fans, especially for England fans of an Arsenal persuasion as well. But there was plenty more to enjoy from Thursday overall. And we're going to go through all of those as well in today's slides. But good morning first to those joining us live in the chat box: Steve, Matt, Norris, Black Shine, Greatly Poos and Shari. We've got Brian and Barry and Jeffrey and Martin. Good morning to you, to Stone. Steve Stone, that is. Black Shine. We've got Martin. We've got Diam Evakuru. Mohammed's. We've got me dropping a message in the chat box. Easton. We've got Glenn. We've got D. Good morning to so many of you, as always, tuning in. Greatly appreciate you being here. And if you could drop a like on the video, of course. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. That would be greatly appreciated too. Just remember, of course, there's no show tomorrow or Sunday, it being the international break. We take a break at the weekends from these morning shows. So absolutely there is not going to be a show tomorrow or on Sunday. So we'll be back with usual scheduled programming on Monday morning. So look out for that. And sorry if you were tuning in expecting to see a show on Saturday and Sunday, but we do tend to take these international breaks now off. So bear that in mind. But drop a like, subscribe, all the usual YouTubey stuff. But without further ado, let's jump into today's stories. And we begin with Ronaldo. With Ronaldo, who's now got a brand new catchphrase, which is going to follow him absolutely everywhere. I mean, talk about Schadenfreude. Talk about just being hilarious. I mean, what is it? What is it? A series unfortunate? What is it when something ironic precedes something hilariously bad happens? There must be a word to describe that eventuality, because if you've not known this story, if you don't know about this, it has absolutely no bearing, by the way, on Arsenal at all. It's just worth highlighting for those that don't know what happened. Basically, last night, Ireland, Republic of Ireland, beat Portugal 2-0 in their most recent World Cup qualifier. And not only did they beat Portugal, but Ronaldo at one point in the game did the classic, like, put your hands to your eyes, pretend like you're crying animation to try and wind some people up. And then soon after, ended up getting sent off in arguably controversial circumstances with kind of a motion in the box to opponent player. I can't remember who it was who went to ground, but yeah, Ronaldo getting sent off. It's just so funny. It is just so funny. And if you, as I say, it's worth looking up the result and looking up the highlights and looking up the clips online just so you can enjoy it in all its glory. But it means now that Ireland have given themselves maybe a chance of finishing second in the group. I mean, Portugal, I don't think are going to fall off of top spot in the group there. 3 points clear of Ireland, 2 points clear of Hungary. But it has put a little bit of edge to the final game of the group. I think that's just one more game to be played. And yeah, it would be quite funny if they managed to do it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's more than no, I think there is one more round of games, which Ireland face. Let's just have a quick look. Who do Ireland play in the next round of fixtures. They play away to Hungary, so they could indeed finish second if they manage to go to Hungary and win. Dominic Szoboszlai's Hungary, and Portugal have Armenia, which you would expect them to beat, of course, as well. So, yeah, it's difficult to see Portugal losing against Armenia, but maybe Ireland can finish second and maybe put themselves in a spot with a playoff, which would be pretty cool as well. But yeah, I just wanted to share this story because it's just hilarious. And once again, going to show why Lionel Messi is the greatest ever. But moving forward, before we start that debate, Bukayo Saka and Eberechi Eze scored in England's 2-0 win over Serbia in what was obviously another example yet again of Bukayo Saka just being brilliant. In fact, I saw an amazing, he picked up the Man of the Match awards after the game, and I saw an amazing stat courtesy of Beale's sister, who said on X, Saka has the same amount of Man of the Match awards that Bellingham, Foden and Palmer have goals combined for the national team. 3 goals and assists in his last 3 games for Tuchel since coming back from injury. Quite the stat, that. Saka has the same number of Man of the Match awards as Bellingham, Foden and Palmer have goals combined for the national team. Pretty impressive. Pretty impressive indeed. And the 2 goals were, as Sir Nicholas puts, they're pretty. They were quite pretty goals. I think that's a nice way of putting it. Very pretty indeed. Because Saka's goal, first of all, comes kind of from a deflection. I think it's Rodgers' shot, then leads to the ball skewing out to the right before Saka just curls the ball on the volley around the keeper and into the side netting. Gorgeous finish. And then the second goal from Eze is kind of just a simple pass from Foden as he breaks clear and he's in lots of space. But first time shot, curling effort, top right hand corner, glorious finish. And again, the type of goal that we want to see give a lot more. We want to see him give these types of goals to Arsenal a lot more. We want to see these types of moments in Arsenal games more often than not. And Eze has got that ability to score from anywhere, and he has got this kind of match-winning ability, and that's why Arsenal signed him, to give us that extra bit of quality. And it come from him being off the left. And I keep saying that I think that playing off the left is going to be Eze's best chance of creating these fabulous moments for me. So certainly Eze is in hitting that kind of moment that we needed him to in the right point as well. So yeah, Saka and Eze were 2 goals, 2 Arsenal finishes. Brilliant, wonderful. William Saliba started in a 4-0 win for France over the week as well. And Italy, of course, played their game. They beat Moldova 2-0, an important game for them. Calafiori not involved in that game. Not surprising because, of course, he is currently out injured, is Calafiori. So he might return for their last game against Norway. But as things stand, and speaking of Norway, we need to talk about a fantastic result for them as they beat Estonia 4-1 to put Norway on the precipice of a first World Cup qualification since 1998. And it would be an amazing achievement to go through the whole group, having won every single game. They've currently won 7, drawn none, lost none. And they have done it now without Martin Ødegaard in their team, but not without Martin Ødegaard in their presence. Ødegaard, to my understanding, I broke the story yesterday that Ødegaard had decided against the opportunity of going away on a little holiday. He was offered the chance to go away for a few days to rest and recover somewhat, just kind of take a break from the rehabilitation. But instead, he decided to join up with his national teammates and to be there. Off the field, of course, Stel Solbakken, the Norwegian international coach, said they had sought permission from Arsenal to have Ødegaard with the team. He is their captain, and just having him there, of course, that inspiration there was obviously very key. And it is a nice shirt, Martin, isn't it? In fact, I have that shirt, and I have Ødegaard on the back of that shirt. It is such a nice kit, probably my favourite international kit ever. And that's why I went and got it. But yeah, Ødegaard, again, showing exactly why he is my captain and Arsenal's captain. He just the decisions he makes. Of course, he's not only just making this decision for the benefit of Norway, but he's focusing on his rehabilitation, his recovery. He wants to return for Arsenal as soon as possible. And I spoke to Declan Rice in May ahead of the second leg of the Champions League game against PSG, and I asked Declan about Ødegaard. And I basically had said that, by his standards, and he'd said this himself, he hadn't had his best season on the pitch. But what has he been like as a captain throughout the campaign? And Declan Rice simply replied saying, yeah, he's incredible. He's our leader. He's our captain. He trains every single day. He plays every single minute of every single game. He's one of the best lads I've seen away from the pitch in terms of how he lives his life. He's got the full respect of the dressing room, the way he demands, the way he drives the team, the way he speaks. You wouldn't see him as that type of character, but he really is behind the scenes. He's been amazing for us. I wouldn't want anyone else being our captain. And I think the lads, feel the same way about that as well. Obviously, everyone has a dip in form. I've had dips in form before as well, but it doesn't matter because he can deliver on the biggest stage. We're always with Martin because he's one of our best players. And you remember, of course, at the start of the season as well, that Mikel Arteta revealed that they'd done a vote to decide again the Arsenal captaincy. And every single player picked Martin Ødegaard. Arteta said he won by a mile. Big 100 marks. Everybody chose the same person, which is Martin Ødegaard, which is the most clear sign that you can have how they feel about who has been their captain to defend, improve, and win matches, and we want to win. So, there's no question about that. If we're going to talk about leadership and the kind of leaders, we can be here for hours. So at the end, what matters the most is how these guys feel about who needs to lead the team, how they feel comfortable, who's going to push them, who's going to give them support when it's happening. Basically, who do you want to represent the club and the team when we go out there and face any opposition? And that's the key. And that's Martin Ødegaard. For Arsenal and for Norway, he's such an important profile character, person in both of those dressing rooms that it was important that he was there for Norway as they nearly secured. They're on the brink. It's goal difference alone, but their goal difference strips that of Italy so greatly that it's not going to matter in that final game. But it would be great to see if they could get another really good result. But I think they will miss Ødegaard, of course, for quite that competitive fixture that it is. But fingers crossed they can still get the result and get that done. You can read the full piece if you would like to give you that insight around Ødegaard and how he skipped a little break to go over and be with the Norwegian national side on the Football.London website. So go give that one a read. Now, before we go to part two, I just wanted to share this graphic with you that has been doing the rounds because it kind of really took me a bit back, this graphic, because it is quite the scene. It's a graphic produced by Huddle, which, of course, StatsBomb are part of the Y-Scout network. And the graphics define how much space does each team allow their opponent. And you've got the graphics, of course, of all the different teams. The red area is showing where the least amount of space is given to an opponent, and it gradually goes to grey and then to dark blue. And the blue areas are where teams allow the most amount of space for their opponents. Now, it shouldn't take you long to work out which of these teams is Arsenal, because it's the only team that doesn't have any blue anywhere on that graphic. This is a joke, quite frankly, how controlled Arsenal have. They allow so little space to any of their opponents in any game. There's only two little quadrants on the field, and that's mainly kind of apparently our left-hand side of the box is neutral. It's not blue, that's grey. For the record, maybe Spearmint might be colourblind. We're helping him out. The two lighter areas there are grey, and then there's another area kind of just ahead of Calafiori's position, if you like, just before the halfway line on the left-hand side. And other than that, it's just all red, which means either Arsenal are allowing a neutral amount of space in just two spots, and the rest of the whole pitch is just red. And by the way, no areas are blue in this entire graphic. You've got the two neutral points, the rest of the area is red, but there is no blue areas at all. And it just shows the absolute dominance that Arsenal have throughout the game, for every game this season, has been so strong. And I just had to highlight this because it is and has been absolutely brilliant to see Arsenal dominant every single game. And it's a frustration, of course, that Arsenal have dropped points in certain games that we have seen this season. But again, it's just so good to see Arsenal again. And Arteta has spoken in the past about how he wants to dominate absolutely everything. And, well, I think this is probably the best example of that in practice. Now, dominance is obviously really important in so many different aspects, but particularly you want to dominate the market of VPNs more than anything else. And there is only one that really does dominate the market when it comes to VPNs, and that is indeed the one, the only, the formidable NordVPN. And if you go to nordvpn.com/Gooner, you can go and get yourself a significant discount off a 1 or a 2 year plan with 4 months extra thrown in free on top of that as well. So if you want to dominate the criminals and the snoopers and prevent them by locking them out, like Arsenal lock out so many teams from shooting on their goal, by getting the protection to stop them from getting into your data online, maybe on your mobile, your tablet, or indeed your laptop, well, you need the extra layer of protection that NordVPN provides, but it also gives you that superpower to change your geo-digital location on any of those devices, and of course to any of the territories that Nord does support. And if you go to nordvpn.com/Gooner, you can get yourself a significant discount, and that 30-day money-back guarantee, of course, as well, is there. Right, let's go to part 2, your questions and more, right after this. Right, this is part 2 of today's show, where we'll be jumping into the chat box and we tackle some of your thoughts, some of your questions, some of your feelings, of course, as well. So if indeed there are anything that you would like to discuss, now is the time to do just that. So get those questions into the chat. I love this, by the way. Spearmint's like, help me out, chat. You know you see it too. Martin, Spearmint, mate, that's great. Dear Vangaroo says, sorry, Spearmint, I see great. You love to see it. You can't pull the wool over their eyes, mate. We're as one. We don't do lies here. We don't do misinformation here. We don't try and skew you. We don't try and lie. We're all about the truth. So I love that. Absolutely love that. Right, Reggie says, I heard that if Foden didn't set Eze up perfectly, Eze would never have scored. I also heard that Eze is Foden's robot, and Foden has some sort of hand control he uses to make Eze work properly. Yeah, this is the narrative, of course, that Eze would be nothing or wouldn't have done anything without Foden's help in yesterday's game, because all of it was about Foden. But Eze, of course, with a brilliant finish, and that should be what people are focusing on. Mira says, I did see the incredibly patronising and sexist new Halo, aka the Lil Sis of Sky Sports, as if the rebrand of the WSL this season wasn't bad enough. No, I haven't seen this. I mean, what is it? And why is it sexist and misogynistic? I'm not sure. Introducing Sky Sports Halo, the Lil Sis of Sky Sports, a new TikTok channel created specifically for female sports fans. We're all about all sports and championing female athletes. We're here with the culture, community, and connection. We don't just watch, we live it. Yeah, okay. I'm happy to have a conversation about like anything that's of this ilk. You know, we don't shy away from these topics at all. I'm struggling. Okay. I'm struggling with the accusation of misogyny here. So they've created a new channel specifically for female sports fans called the Halo Sky Sports. Now, does that mean that they're not going to do any female sport on other channels? I know the people looking at the Lil Sis, the Lil Sis of Sky Sports. Is that what people are focusing in on as the misogyny part? I mean, there was misogyny on my timeline yesterday from a pretty well-known content creator that I saw that I duly unfollowed them as a result. But that genuinely was misogyny. I'm not sure this is. I don't know if the creation of a new TikTok channel, because it's not replacing anything. It's not saying that they're taking away female sport content creation from any other aspect of Sky. I'm all for calling out division and discrimination of any form. I'm all for it, always. I'm really all for that, but I'm not sure I see it here, Amira. I get the Lil Sis bit is a little bit, it pushes it a little bit. It pushes it a little bit. But I don't think the creation of a dedicated TikTok channel, which is to highlight female sports athletes, is misogynistic. I don't think it segregates. It's, if anything, it's an addition. It's an additive thing. It's not replacing anything. It doesn't say it. If it was to replace something, if it was to say, take away the coverage of female sports from everything else and just have it here, then you could have an argument. But I don't really see it. You know, and as I say, I feel like I'd be pretty fair here about kind of analyzing it. And, you know, I'm very critical of mainstream media in terms of certain segments and pundits and comments and stuff. So it's not like there's bias. I just don't think that this is misogyny. The Lil Sis bit pushes it a little bit and it's a bit cringy, but I don't know if I'd go as far as saying that that's misogyny. I just feel as though that absolutely we should call things out when we see it, but we don't want to go too far, because that's when you get people saying that people are just virtue signaling and just being, they're not sensitive, but just trying to cancel things for the sake of trying to cancel things. I'm never one to cancel things, but yeah, I think it's, yeah. I mean, I'm a bloke talking about this. Maybe some of our female listeners in the chat can give their opinions on what they think about it. So let us know. If you are a female in the chat, let me know what you think about Sky Sports creating a dedicated TikTok channel specifically for female sports. They've described it as the Lil Sis of Sky Sports. Halo. I'm not sure about the name. I mean, I'm a big fan of Halo, the video game, but yeah, I don't know if it has I don't know what the link is here specifically, but maybe I'm missing something else. Yeah, Martin's just saying it's good to have a female perspective. Absolutely. So any of the women listening to the channel right now, let us know your thoughts. I want to know. Do you see it as misogynistic? And if you do, tell me why. Because I'd love to know why you think that it is or isn't. Antsy Woman says it's not misogynistic per se. It is just a Lil Sis is a bit weird or a very weird thing, says Antsy Woman in the chat. So there you go. If Antsy Woman is indeed a woman in the chat, let us know. I'm making the misogynistic assumption by your name that you might be. I'm Organist says, Tom, isn't bringing up this being sexist. Football is football. I mean, I assume that's a joke, but if it's not, I don't really know where you're coming from. D says, what's your thoughts on Harry Kane dropping so deep so often? He played like a 9, a 10, an 8, a 6, and a 4. Should he be just doing his job, or is it acceptable? I mean, Harry Kane's job has always been to kind of drop in, link up play. And for England, Harry Kane's record is very good, but I don't think we've ever seen the Harry Kane that we got for Spurs or that we're getting for Bayern. I'd like to see if we can replicate that. And Thomas Tuchel, having managed, Kane at club level as well, you'd hope would know how to get the best from him. But he didn't score yesterday. It wasn't an amazing performance, even though England won. But yeah, I guess that's something that will gradually improve and grow. The World Cup's massive for Thomas Tuchel. If England are one of the favourites for that competition, and rightly so. So big weight on the shoulders there. Carl says, I saw it's Thomas Vermaalen's 40th birthday. It got me thinking he's one of our former players that would also fit in well with Mikel's system. Had a lot of the qualities as a Calafiori or a Hincapié have. He did like to get forward with Vermaelen. Absolutely did like to get forward. Raj says, Tom, if you had to make an Arteta 11, the best players under Arteta's reign, I feel like every single player from his 11 would be this starting 11. Does that not show the complete I think you've got a great point. I mean, Aubameyang, you could argue maybe has a shout of being in there as well. Obviously, he helped Arsenal to win those FA Cups, but yeah, at the end of his tenure, really did struggle somewhat. So yeah, I think that's worth. I think it's worth adding that. But elsewhere, Ozil doesn't get in. Yeah, I don't think anyone else gets in, do they? Don't think so. Probably a really fair point. Melissa says cringy rather than misogynistic. Don't feel I need a whole dedicated space. So Melissa's not a fan. And so, fair enough. Gooner Oz says the Lil Sis debate here reminded me about the Supergirl Superwoman debate in the CW series in the early episodes as well. And Melissa says, "I'm no one's Lil Sis." To be fair, some women will be. You might not be, but so I have a little sister, so some absolutely will be. But I absolutely understand it that generalizing all women as Lil Sis is certainly cringy. Definitely so. JB says England are always one of the World Cup favourites. They are many, many times, but not always. Maria says, I am someone's little sis. There you go. This is what I'm saying. Melissa might not be, but Maria is. So, but I think pointing out that they've kind of described all women in a way is of Lil Sis doesn't. I can't believe this has been the conversation this morning. This is mad. Absolutely mad. FFK fan says, I seriously think Arsenal should buy Antonio Nusa. I mean, the thing about Antonio Nusa is that he nearly joined Brentford but failed his medical. I'm just not sure if it's... Yeah, I'm not sure if it's too risky to go for Nusa again with the record of his injuries. I think if Arsenal are going to sign a wide player, it needs to be like a Semenyo or a Kenan Yildiz or somebody like that. That's what I think. Martin says, I am my big sis's little bro. There you go. And yeah, Melissa says, I have a little bro, if that helps. You can't say that, Melissa. They're not all little bros. Sometimes we're big bros, exactly like I am. Blackshine says, they should leave it as is. I agree. Lil sis is not a great term to use. Did the women's team ever ask for this? I doubt it. See, this is kind of where, like, I think the Lil Sis thing is the key point here. I think if they hadn't have put Lil Sis, they would have been fine. But because they put that, it is a little bit cringy. It is a little bit generalizing. But I don't see the problem with a dedicated TikTok channel that is just all about celebrating, highlighting, bringing forward women's sports athletes. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Because the reason why I personally, as a man, as a white bloke, I personally don't feel like there's a problem with it because, and my voice is always just so marginalized into the space of the world being a white man. I'm joking for those that don't get it. I just feel as though that, like, there's nothing really wrong with kind of platforming it. And as well, like, the women's game for many, many, many decades was just so marginalized in comparison to the men's game, and so more effort needs to be put in today in order to help elevate it more, bring more attention to it, and to give it the recognition that it absolutely deserves, so that one day maybe it's going to be very difficult to see it. So many strange people are weirdly against it, but the idea that the women's game could eventually kind of catch up in some way, we're kind of like here at the moment, and you want to see it gradually both rise to the point where it gets closer and closer and closer. The fact that Arsenal are selling out the Emirates for games in the WSL and in the Women's Champions League is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And says the cringe bit, Answer says the cringe bit is that the women's channel is the main channel's Lil Sis. Women can be little sisters, but kind of relegating all women's sport to being the Lil Sis. Yeah, I think that's probably the best explanation of what's wrong with it. Great campaign, great idea, great essence of, like, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Intention. Great intention, poor execution. That's probably the way I would put it. Oregano says, Tom, just a question. Are we starting to go overboard with this? I'm sure there aren't as bothered as no one. Yeah, for sure. I'm sure there is an element of us going over the top. I'm sure there absolutely is. But I also think, as I was asked the question, it's important to respect the question and give it the time of day that it deserves. So that's what we've done. Yeah, that marketing intern probably got. I hope that's not the case, because I don't think that's the way forwards. Because obviously the intention's really good. I don't think there's anything malicious about that label. I think it's just uneducated. I think there's a difference between a malicious intent behind a messaging, a post, a comment. We've seen recent instances of radio presenters here in the UK have lost their jobs because of some alleged pretty horrible things that have been posted online. And then this example, I mean, and I'm sure you're joking, Spearman, or at least I hope you are, that's not the way forwards. Like, whoever's put that tag just needs to get a bit of education, in my opinion, about that. There just needs to be a little bit more of a concerted effort to show why that's probably not the best idea to describe it as that, or why the marketing team is probably. And Spearman says I'm joking most of the time, so there you go. So yeah, I think that's probably fair. Because it's Tom, any returning players been confirmed? No, but we might get some more information next week. We should get some information next week. Absolutely. Panny says you're always so apologetic for being a whole man. Whole man. Be proud of who you are, says Panny. Thank you. That's very kind. A whole man. I am a whole man. I am 100%. I'm a whole man, indeed. Did you mean wholesome? I know that's a little bit presumptuous to say that you were going to say wholesome, but I don't know what a whole man is. Dara says, Tom, I listened to Harry's podcast yesterday where we gave out new signings player ratings. There was a bit of debate around Hincapié. I would love to hear your thoughts. Hincapié, I would give out of 10. He's barely played. It's difficult to even rate him. Thinking about the performances he's had against Brighton, he was excellent. Absolutely excellent against Brighton. Brilliant performance. He's come off the bench on a couple of occasions. I can't really rate that. And then the other start he had at left back was against Slavia Prague. Didn't have the best of first halves. Definitely grew and improved into the second half. 5 or 6? 6? I think 6 is probably fair. Like, it's subjective anyway. Like, when I do player ratings for the team for Football London, I usually think like 5 is like the first rung of the negative column. Like, I don't think it's like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is good. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is bad. It's more like 6 for me is the mid ground. I think most players will start on a 6 because if you go to 5, 5 is more negative because it's in the bottom half of the 10s. So I tend to go 6 as kind of my starting point and then up from there. If a player's done more bad than good, they'll drop down. If they've done more good than bad, you get it. So I'd say 6 is probably fair. What did he give him? What did Harry give Hincapié? I'd be curious to know what he gave him and why there was so much debate. As well, I think that's also worth pointing out. Shall we scroll up in the chat box? I feel like we might have missed them all. Sarah in the chat says, I think you don't need to girl bossify and dumb down sports content, using that term loosely, says Sarah, in pink glowy text and memes to engage a female audience. I hadn't even thought about the color usage. Yes, there is the use of pink. There's also the use of yellow and orange and kind of a red color. And then the text is in white with like this yellow halo, which of course halos are yellow. The O of the halo is also kind of got a yellow hue to it. I know I know that there's this kind of this girls equals pink thing that kind of exists, but I think there is a danger in society today of we go a little bit too far. I'm now very aware, Sarah, that your nameplate with the S is also pink. I've just noticed that. I don't know if that's intentional or not, but it is. So I don't know if you chose that color or not. But if you did choose that color, I guess there's an irony there. But I don't know how it works when you choose kind of the color of your YouTube profile, if it is just a letter. Because to be fair, Martin's also is pink as well. So I don't know. But that did make me giggle a little bit. But I see where you're coming from, 100%. Absolutely, I see where you're coming from. The idea of kind of girl bossifying and dumbing down sports content. I don't know if it is dumbing it down, nor was it in pink glowy text. It was in white text with a yellow hue on the halo. There was pink in the background and yellow and orange and red as well, if that helps. And the pink didn't necessarily dominate the image. So if it was just pink, then maybe there's a good argument, but I'm not sure necessarily that's it. And nor do I think like it's a case of like memes to engage a female audience. I think the content will engage the female audience because it will be promoting, championing, giving more of a dedicated kind of platform to just female content. Because so much of the normal content is dominated by the men's game anyway. So I'm enjoying this discussion because I think it's worth debating. I think it's worth discussing. Amorgana says, Tom, did you know, according to Rob Dorset, Foden played better than Bellingham when they came on? I didn't watch the second half, so I've only seen the goals, so I can't really judge. Dara says, I think he gave Hincapié 6.5. Abby says, funny when people rate Raya on 5-6 when he had nothing to do with it. I mean, Raya's had a great season. He's pulled off some great saves. He's had one or two iffy moments, but he's a solid 8 out of 10. Is Raya. Diavanger says, great tracksuit top, Tom. Couldn't afford one on my pension. Well, yeah, they are silly money. Absolutely. I empathise with you completely. They are silly money what they cost. I wait till payday and I find myself just spending silly amounts on Arsenal merch. I've ordered that new blue jumper with kind of the aesthetic on it that's just released. I loved that. I've been saving up a little bit. Loss says, how many minutes has Hincapié played for Arsenal? Is there enough data to rate him? I think there's enough data just from looking at the two performances. I can rate the two performances. I think he was a solid 8 against Brighton. I think he was probably a 7 against Slavia. But overall, because obviously he's not been available, that has to come into your thinking. So I think a 6 is fair. I think it's absolutely fair. D says the whole thing comes across as a bit desperate and out of touch. I don't know. I don't know if it does. I don't know if it does come across as desperate and out of touch. I think it's quite in touch to do a dedicated female channel. I think honestly, my honest thoughts is that we're living at the moment in kind of this period where any attempt to champion anything that isn't kind of male orientated almost gets set upon immediately sometimes. It's not a nice place at the moment, is it? I mean, I don't want to go to politics and stuff about things because I know it's always a divisive thing. And I know that this is only a little tweet about a dedicated female sports TikTok channel, but it's all kind of interlinked, isn't it? And it's just not a very nice place to be at the moment on social media. And it feels like clearly what for me, I think what gets me a little bit, my back up a little bit about kind of the criticism of this. And I think there's fair criticism to have of it, but clearly it's done with good intentions. Like that's what I think bugs me about kind of the criticism towards it. I think absolutely scrutinize like the Lil Sis thing because I think that's a little bit cringy, a little bit. I think some of you use better words than I've used today. Let me even see if I can find it. One of you used a great word to describe it, but I think it's just like no one can tell me that the setting up of that TikTok channel is anything other than someone with good intentions. That there is good intentions there. Do you feel like today we always kind of like want to just tear down things that have really good intentions? Because there's just so much crap in the world at the moment. Surely, like we want to see things done that's meant to be with the idea of championing things, being a nice thing. You know? Does that make sense? I just think we're seeing this set up and it's not been executed well. I think that's the way I think that's, good intentions, poorly executed was, I think, the best way of describing this Halo thing from Sky Sports, right? And I just think that at some point, the poor execution is obviously how they've tagged it. But I think we can probably look past that and appreciate the positive intention behind it. No? Do you not think? I think that's probably the way of putting it. And Soup says, are we also not assuming that the Lil Sis thing was just created by a 50-year-old bloke? I mean, arguably, we don't know who tagged it on. I still think it's possible, not in sense of being like, if it was indeed a woman that came up with that tagline of just Lil Sis, I think it's just a little bit ill-informed. I think it's just a little bit. There's not much thought that's gone into putting that tagline necessarily. They've not really thought about maybe the implication of what it will have on a broad perspective. Because if it was put out from an account that wasn't a genderless Sky Sports account, then it would have a different meaning, I guess, to it. But because it has been put out by the official Sky Sports account, that changes the narrative around it. But yeah, a couple of new members. Enger in the chat, thank you so much for becoming a member, joining the family. And Nancy Woman has also become a member. I guess that's a positive sign. I guess that shows maybe I've been doing the right thing in terms of speaking about this in a good way. So thank you for your support. I appreciate it. DJ says, was it a football content creator that you unfollowed yesterday? And what was the tweet? I'm not going to go into it, DJ, quite frankly. I don't really want to repeat what I saw. I don't really want to bring attention to it. I saw a pretty horrible thing. I've absolutely taken a print screen of it for future reference, but I'm not going to say who it was and what it was because I don't need to. I think the account's protected tweets anyway, but I just think that what I saw yesterday was just horrible. Just a horrible way to speak to another woman that when disagreeing with their point of view. But I'm not going to bring it. I don't need to bring it to light. People thrive off drama, thrive off kind of like, what is it? Say it live. I remember a time where, and we've grown our fair share number. It's a very small minority. We've grown our fair share of haters on the channel. We've got people that don't like us, don't like me. I mean, I'm not saying they don't like you just because you listen to me. Maybe they do. Maybe the hatred runs that deep. But there's people that watch me just with the intention of creating drama. And if you want an example of that as evidence, I remember when I was asked a question about a thumbnail of Terry's or like a title of Terry's show. And me and Terry are on very good terms. And I've spoken with Terry a number of times. We've gone on each other's channels in the past. Haven't done much content together recently, but I'm happy for that to change. But I think that I mentioned that I thought that one of the thumbnails or one of the titles was a little bit clickbaity. Like I thought it was. I can be guilty of that. So, if you give it, you got to be able to take it. And I think I said that I thought like one of the thumbnails or one of the titles was a little bit clickbaity or misleading. And someone then who never leaves comments in the chat because I think they're probably blocked, hopped over to Terry's channel and then left a comment that said, Tom called you out for being clickbaity and all this. And I'm like, this is what I mean. This is why when I say I've blocked someone online or I've like unfollowed them because of a misogynistic tweet, I don't need the drama of saying what that tweet was. I don't need the drama of saying who that was because I know that there are sad little lowlifes that watch this channel just with the sole intention of trying to make my life worse. So, because, yeah, and in that entire instant, I remember ringing up Terry literally in the moments after that happened. And he was like, oh, did you? Oh, that's all right. Because it wasn't a big deal. Because we can accept criticism of one another at times and be like, yeah, fair enough. Like, and he frankly pointed out, he goes, to be fair, like, you're not exactly a saint when it comes to it. And I'm not. So people ask my opinion on something. I gave my opinion on it. And it's just one of those things. But yeah, I just think that it's mad. I think Terry does way more good than bad. So, it's just one of those like, it's mad, isn't it? Mad. And that's why I won't say who it was. I happily bring it up because I think it's important to bring up the fact that there are examples of this stuff that goes on amongst some of the big kind of profiles out there. But yeah, just not for me. Not for me. Mark says some people are trolls just for the sake of being trolls. Exactly. Anti-Woman says the problem with only thinking about intention is that it assigns our best assumptions. We don't know if the person behind it was ill-informed or just didn't care. And that's why we have discussions then, isn't it? Because you're absolutely right. Like we don't know. Without knowing the intention behind it, we can only assess what we see. And what we see is ultimately what they have to think about when that's posted off a generic Sky Sports account. So we have to judge it in that way. We can't judge it in the sense of just assuming who the person might have been that posted that. We have to make our critique, our assessment, and come to a conclusion based upon what we are exposed to, because that's what they are publishing. They are publishing that on that channel, and that's what we're exposed to. So that's what we can judge. That's what we can critique. But again, I think the conclusion, I think absolutely the fair conclusion is that I just need to respond to something quickly in the chat. It wasn't that. Whatever that is, Sean, that you're talking about, it wasn't that, just for the record. It wasn't that. That was not what I'm talking about. I didn't even know that was a thing. But when it comes to, it wasn't that person, for the record, either. I just think that when it comes to, that when we're exposed to these things, maybe there's kind of a quickness to want to tear it down. I think that's probably the bigger issue, isn't it? I think we want to tear it down. There's kind of an instinct to see something, you're like, oh, let's tear that down because we noticed something that might be slightly off. Cancel culture is so horrible. Like, it's genuinely so horrible. People losing jobs because of things that I think they don't really deserve to lose their job because of, or losing a position, or losing something because of like old posts or old tweets or something like that. I think there's like a context to things. I think some things are genuinely abhorrent and then therefore do deserve consequence. I'm not saying that there isn't that a case. It's not binary. It's not a blanket rule. But I think that even kind of like the loose, like, and I know it was a joke earlier in the chat, but somebody joked saying, well, that intern is going to lose their job. They shouldn't lose their job over that. And I know, again, I just want to say, I know that was a jokey comment, but there will be people out there that genuinely think that person should lose their job because they put Lil Sis in the post. Now, I think there's good intentions, and I'm assuming that there's good intentions there. And I think that person just needs to get a little bit of education around that rather than being cancelled. I don't agree with them being cancelled. That should never be the case. You know, and especially with the way in which kind of like, especially with the world we live in right now, is absolutely maddening. Absolutely maddening. DJ says, I was just asking in case it's someone I followed and would unfollow. I know you didn't mean anything bad by it. I was just kind of riffing off of the comment, but you don't need to worry about it. If you see anything that you're not comfortable with, you can unfollow them. You know, it's great as that. You don't need to unfollow them just because I've seen something. Like, you can choose to do what you want to do. Darius is a very important question now, Tom. If we, Ireland, where Dara is from, beat Hungary on Sunday, do you think that we should get a public holiday on Monday? Because I certainly do. There was a big debate about if England, if the men's team would have won the Euros, should we have had a bank holiday? I don't think we had a bank holiday when the women won the Euros. So why should we get a bank holiday if the men win the Euros? The argument is probably we shouldn't. I mean, purely from a selfish perspective, I don't get bank holidays. So my job doesn't incorporate bank holidays at all. I work bank holidays, but I do get paid a little bit more if I do. So, like, it doesn't really affect me. If anything, a bank holiday is a good thing because I can choose to work it and then get paid a little bit more. But yeah, I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if that's it. So yeah. Arteta says, Tom, I love your podcast. You get very little super chats, but still read out comments. But other podcasts only read out super chats. And that's up to them. That's up to them. I'm always grateful. I've said before, I'm very content with life right now. I have a dream job situation. I love this channel. I love doing what I do. I need to learn to take more breaks. What I have is more than enough. That's why I don't ask for your super chats. I read them out as much as I can when I remember to, but I don't ask for them. I don't exclusively read out super chats. Some channels have so many comments that the only time they can read out a comment really is those that have dedicated some financial backing to the channel. So I think there are scenarios where some channels will only be able to read out super chats, really, because that's the only time they've got, because maybe the chat box is so crazy, there's so many people watching, that super chats are the only way that you can get your comment read out. I mean, fair play to them if that's the case, but I just kind of read as many people. It's the same for members. Like, some people are members. You don't have to be a member for me to read your comment out. Your name does stand out in the chat a little bit more because of just it has a symbol next to it. But I'll be very honest with you. I think I read out. I mean, Armor Gunner's not a member. I can see that just from his name on the screen. But Patrick is a member, as you can see that little symbol next to his name on the screen. But I wouldn't necessarily read out anybody's comment over somebody else's just because they're a member or because it's a super chat. I read out all super chats because someone supported us monetarily in that dedicated moment. But Members and non-members, I try and read out as many comments as you can during these shows. This is a real classic international break show, isn't it? I think this is probably the most international break show we've done for a while. Patrick says, did you watch A Different Knock's latest video about Arsenal being the Leonardo DiCaprio of football? I think it's a brilliant piece of content. I haven't, but I will endeavour. It's my day off today, so I will endeavour to watch Alex's latest work. He always does great work, and you should be subscribed if you're not already to The Different Knock. Abby says, I just checked all my socials to see if Tom unfollowed me. I'm safe. Yes, it wasn't you. It wasn't you. Maria says, same. I tune in every single day. Love your take on things. Thank you, Maria. That's very kind. Do I have to say Maria Lola? Like, I can see you got a hyphen between you. So should I be saying Maria Lola? I feel like I've been disrespecting your name now. I've just noticed there's a hyphen between Maria Lola. I mean, I know double-barreled second names exist pretty commonplace these days, but double-barreled first names, fair play. Like, that's pretty cool. I mean, there must be people out there that have double-barreled first and second names. I always thought, obviously, when I was a teacher, I noticed gradually that on my registers, double-barreled second names would be becoming so much more common, which is a little bit of a sad scenario, of course, isn't it? Because it kind of indicates there's a greater rise in divorce and in not necessarily divorce even. That's a little bit short-sighted of me, just because of children out of wed. I'm digging myself a hole now, and I didn't even realize I was going to do that. But you just assumed how neglecting of me to just assume that anyone with a double-barreled surname must be from a divorce background. That's horrendous, isn't it? That's so bad of me, when it's actually not that case at all. It's just a child with two parents with different surnames. What am I doing this morning? And Maria says, no worries, either is fine. So I can choose. That's pretty cool. You got two first names I can choose from. Hand of Arsenal's in the chat this morning. Great reporting on Miles yesterday. Top class stuff. Thank you, mate. Appreciate it. I think it's important to highlight that. Obviously, it was information I came into knowledge of, that, you know, kind of had conversations around with some people close to Miles before, and I know that he is absolutely relishing Arsenal's competition, despite not having as many minutes. And it's, for the record, you know, I think there is this kind of, like, at the moment, I feel as Arsenal fans, we are a little bit sensitive. I think that we've kind of, like, and I think we have a right to be a little bit sensitive, for the record, as well. But I think there is this case of, like, we know that Arsenal get talked about and are set upon differently compared to anybody else, right? I think we are talked about in a way that is just so different to every other club. Now, we might have that because we are Arsenal fans, and psychologically we might see it that way. But I genuinely believe that to be the case. I do think Arsenal are talked about in very, very different ways. I think that from the Miles standpoint, I think it was Rob Dorset was the reporter at Sky that reported that there are multiple clubs interested in Miles. I want to say, for the record, I don't think Rob did. I said Paul because I've just read Paul's comment there, and I'm going to come back to that. I don't think Rob did anything wrong, because I know for a fact that there are Premier League clubs monitoring Miles Lewis-Skelly. It's a story, right? It is a story that there are clubs monitoring Miles Lewis-Skelly. His minutes have gone down because of the competition at the club, not because of anything he's done wrong at all. He's been excellent, top professional. He's relishing the competition, has no intention to leave. He's just signed a new contract. Arsenal don't want to lose him. This is just the new era of Arsenal. This is how it works. You get less minutes, less time. Rotation's going to happen more. He was brilliant in the performance we've seen. There's a great highlights where I think Kimo posted about the PSG game that was retweeted by Doc yesterday. Go and watch that. Excellent example of exactly why Miles has been great against Atletico Madrid. That was one of the performances of the season for Miles Lewis-Skelly. And I was chatting to a colleague of mine yesterday. I said, I think Thomas Tuchel is right to say that Miles needs to be playing to get called up. I think that's absolutely fair. However, I think he'd be mad not to call him up for the World Cup, even if he's not playing that regularly for Arsenal, because it's pretty impossible to do that in certain positions at the club when someone like Calafiori is playing as good as he is playing. But for me, Miles Lewis-Skelly is still our best left-back for England. He's better than Jed Spence. Don't talk to me about Jed Spence being better than Miles Lewis-Skelly. And I know I've got an Arsenal hat on, and I know I've got an Arsenal badge on my chest right now, and I do internally also, always. But Don't talk to me about Jed Spence being better than Miles Lewis-Skelly. That's a load of tosh. Absolute rubbish that Miles Lewis-Skelly is not better than Jed Spence. Nico O'Reilly is a brilliant player. Nico O'Reilly is absolutely worthy of being in that England squad. But when it comes to the World Cup, Miles Lewis-Skelly for me is the standout and should be in that England team. But I will say that I don't think there was anything wrong with Rob Dorset reporting those stories that there are Premier League clubs monitoring that situation. What I think was wrong, and therefore rightfully deleted later, was the graphic that Sky kind of put up, which showed his appearances and numbers, despite the fact that there's no context applied to that at all. And rightfully, that tweet was deleted. I think James might be doing a show on it. James B of the Loose Cannons pod might be doing a show on it. So I think there are ways in which we can kind of assess kind of the intention, the genuinity, that's not a word, the genuineness, probably not a word, of a report. But yeah, I think that's really important to point out. But thank you for your work, kind of Arsenal always. I think a lot of people have really appreciated the justice warrior element of what's gone on over this season, for sure. But yeah, if you want to go read the piece on Miles, go read the piece on Miles. If you want to go read my piece on the Ødegaard situation as well, you can go and read that. Both available on the Football London website. And Paul says parents marrying can retain both parents' surnames for their children as well. There you go. I mean, yeah, I really did dig myself a hole there, didn't I? Paul says, I've had disagreements with Tom, but we've made contact outside of the programs to understand viewpoints. I try and do that as much as I can. It's really difficult sometimes to reach out, and it doesn't happen too often. But if it's something gets kind of political, and sometimes, you know, I'm as clued in as I can be on the politics side of things. I listen to a lot of politics podcasts. It's a topic I have a lot of joy engaging with, absorbing, trying to understand more about the world. And that obviously leads to sometimes you having disagreements with people. But Paul will know this. Martin will know this. I've reached out to both of them. I've reached out to people in the chat when maybe we've had a conversation in the chat box or we've disagreed on a point of view, and we'll try and have a conversation. I always try and have a conversation with people. I always try and take the time so that people don't feel like I was just going for them or gunning for them. I always try and reach out. I'm not always perfect. Sometimes I get it really wrong. You remember like halftime hooks? He was in the chat box a while ago, and I completely misinterpreted kind of the intention behind him. And I was really unfair in how I set up on him in the chat. I'm not perfect. It happens. And he was absolutely right to call me out about it. I hopped on his channel. He hopped on my channel the next day. And you bury the hatchet. Sometimes it's just not worth it. You know, it's you have to understand sometimes you're not perfect. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to engage with people in the wrong way. You're going to misinterpret what they say. And so therefore it's so worth putting in the effort to reach out to try and better understand why someone, and sometimes it doesn't work out. I had a conversation, I won't say who, but I had a conversation the other day with somebody that I was kind of curious because I felt that they had misquoted Mikel Arteta in particular. And so I reached out to try and ask where that quote came from. The conversation didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. And the person reacted, I felt personally too brash and too resistant to me kind of just questioning why they felt they'd misquoted Arteta in a certain way. Maybe I approached the conversation the wrong way. I don't know. But as I say, I'm not perfect. I do things wrong. I get things wrong. I don't always. I mean, the whole surname thing a second ago is a great example of that. So it's worth pointing that out. And I always try and do it by DM as well. Some people go, why aren't you replying to me publicly? Why are you sending me a DM? The reason why I'm sending you a DM is because, and this is going to sound really up myself, but the accounts that I have on X have 20,000+ followers on. If I reply to somebody publicly about something that's, you know, nothing maybe to do with Arsenal, maybe it is to do with Arsenal, but I'm kind of calling it out, I think I owe that person the privacy of questioning them by DM, to be fair. Because if I start calling somebody out publicly, some people have their notifications turned on because if I'm publishing a story or a show, they might want to see that. So I'll often try and DM somebody if I'm questioning them. Not always. Sometimes I just forget. But I'll try and DM somebody as well because I feel like it's probably better to do that. Does that make sense? If you put something out and I disagree with it and I replied to it and the 20,000 odd followers that are on that account see that reply, and then sometimes it kind of can cause a pile-on, and I think that's unfair. I think sometimes it's unfair to cause kind of a pile-on. Unintentionally. And most of the time it is unintentionally. A lot of people sometimes, I don't really like the quote tweeting. I was really guilty of it back in the day. I used to quote tweet people all the time. Because if we're being honest, if you're quote tweeting somebody to reply to them, it's probably to bring attention, being like, look, I'm replying to this guy. You better see this so you can reply to them too. I think Piers Morgan does it a bit, doesn't he? But, it's not really surprising. But when it comes to kind of, I always think it's like better to kind of like, so your disagreement doesn't need an audience. Perfect. You said it in 6 words? Better than I just explained it in a full rant. So, it's an ego-based reply and it never ends well. It doesn't end well. Sometimes I'll see something that enrage me and I'll be like, I'm replying to that. But most of the time I'll just drop them a DM and be like, so if I put an article out, sometimes I do it. If I put an article out, like I remember the other day I was talking about the piece I wrote about after the Slavia game. One of my immediate thoughts after the game was, when this clean sheet run comes to an end, I wonder how we're going to respond. Now, it came to an end at Sunderland and we responded really well. We turned the scoreline around. Couldn't hold on to it at the end, but we turned the scoreline around. And a lot of people were like, what? Why are you being negative? And I just dropped them some DMs like, why do you think this is negative? What was negative about this? And some people are like, why are you DMing me? And I'm like, because I don't really want to cause a pile-on in the replies. That's why I'm DMing you. So I think it's stuff like that. It's just having it's just being conscious, of when you're interacting. God, this is an international break podcast. You can tell that this is the international break, can't you, with how we're having a conversation like this morning. Soup says, nothing wrong with disagreement if done in a respectful manner. We learn from each other. Absolutely. So Nicholas says, wait, I'm not perfect. I guess I need to have a chat with my mother and what she's been telling me. Your mums always think you're perfect. Yes, it's one of their biggest failings. It's making you feel like you are. Paul says, very kindly, Tom has also educated me. Not many people take the time to do that. That's very kind of you, Paul. And agreeing to disagree. I used to do it all the time. Like, I think there's 2 pathways with the old agree to disagree. I think some people agree to disagree in a genuine way. And there's a very genuine way to agreeing to disagree. And I think sometimes people do it just to say it because the evidence is stacking up against their point of view. And to escape it without having to kind of hold their hands up, they'll say, agree to disagree. I think there's 2 pathways. I used to think it was kind of just the one. Agree to disagree was great. I then realized that people kind of just say agree to disagree sometimes when the evidence is so much against them that they don't want to admit that they're wrong. But I've also realized that you can't ever tell someone they're wrong and explain to them why, really. The only thing and I've said this before on the channel a number of times, the only thing that you can really do is ask somebody questions so that they then start to kind of unravel their own argument. That's kind of the best way to have a discussion, is to ask them a question, not rant at them and say X, Y, Z, but just ask them a question. That's probably the best way to have a conversation when you have a difference of a point of view. So my question, if we come full circle, my question to the person who put the Lil Sis thing out on the Sky Sports Halo thing would be, why did you think that was appropriate? Or did you consider the potential impacts of saying that? Did you consider the potential association with the Lil Sis kind of creating a division more so between the men's and women's side? That would be probably what I'd ask in that scenario. So Nicholas says, I think agree to disagree is mainly valid when debating matters of opinion like waffles and pancakes. I think that's absolutely fair enough. I love both. Just because you say you like one doesn't mean you hate the other. That's the best way. And that is social media encapsulated perfectly. When you say you like something and they're like, what, you don't like this? How can you not like this? And you're like, oh, I didn't say I didn't. I just said I like that. Doesn't mean that I'd have to not like that. It's a weird place. It's a very weird place. TG says, did you see that Arteta helps the Rams in the USA go on a winning run? I didn't. Drop me a DM with the story. I'd love to read it. D says, what were you trying to achieve? Have you achieved what you set out to do? That's another good question. Yeah. Because then you better understand what the intention was. And that's something that we wanted to learn, was what the intention was behind them saying what they were saying. Kazang says, Rice or Caicedo? It's not even a question. It's Rice. Soup says, debate in front of the audience usually won't change the debaters' minds, but can change the audience's minds. That's also a very good point. And Paul says, opinions aren't always binary. Binary is like the what's the word? It's like the spark word of this channel. really. That binary term. Football and discussions around football is not binary. It's never binary. It's never one thing or the other. I hate it when you try to get pinned to something. Someone tries to, I mean, I have it all the time. If I go onto a radio station, if I go onto a television program and someone's like, if Arteta doesn't win anything this season, surely he has to go, right? Binary question. And it's like, no. And this is why. And they're like, no, but surely no trophies equals failure. Trophy equals success. That's not how football works. I don't think the last 4 years of Arsenal have been a failure because we haven't won anything. I think the last 4 years of Arsenal have been a progress report to leading to this point where we might win the league this season. You could look back on those years as a failure if in the end it leads to nothing. If that entire project doesn't lead to the Champions League or the Premier League, then you can look back on those years as a failure because it wouldn't have led to that end goal happening. But if Arsenal win the league this season, those previous seasons are successes because they've led to this point. So that's kind of the whole thing. D says we need. I haven't made a new emoji. That's another failing of mine is I haven't really made good on those promises. I think with AI these days, I could probably get some emojis made pretty easily. Right, I probably could do it myself because the problem with them before was I always struggled to find like a good designer who would do it for a reasonable price to make the emojis. But I guess with AI these days, I could probably make them myself. I mean, I'm always up for it. If you want to start, I'm happy to start a competition. If you want to start sending in your emojis that you'd like to see for the channel, my DMs are open across all my platforms: Instagram, Blue Sky, X. You can find me on any of those. Instagram and X is the top one. Blue Sky is the bottom one on the screen at Tom Canton Media at tomcanton.bsky.social. If you want to send in some suggestions, feel free. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see people sending in some emojis for the channel. They need to be appropriate and they need to have relevance. Like D's coming up with like the binary. We need to have something to do with like binary. I don't know how you would even do that. Binary. I don't know how you would do an emoji for binary. It's been pretty difficult. Paul says, we progress as a club. We haven't been successful in winning trophies. We need to qualify views with them before for them to be meaningful. Yeah, I think that's probably fair. Right. Thank you so much as always for tuning in. I'm going to wrap up the show. I've just looked at the clock and it's like over an hour. So I need to end this show. I will end with this very, very ego-stroking comment from Kumbi who says, you are one of the best podcasters I've come across. We need to keep winning till the end of the season. No more dropping points, Tom. Thank you, mate. It's very kind. And I agree. No more dropping points. Very hard to do that, but hopefully that's the case. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back with you on Monday. No show tomorrow, no show Sunday. It's the international break. We're taking the weekend off, but I'll be back with you on Monday, 8 a.m. as usual, as always. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. Really do enjoy yourselves. Have a proper break. Enjoy your mornings. Have a lay-in. Speak to the missus in the morning. Speak to the husband in the morning rather than listening to me yap on, on a Saturday and a Sunday. Thank you for tuning in, people. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation. I have. This thing has been a really good one today. Apologies if we offended anyone. I'm sure I did somehow at some point. But I really appreciate you all listening. And enjoy yourselves. And as always, up the Arsenal.